Hello, everybody, and welcome to Climate and Cuisine, the podcast of Climate and Diet. And I am the host and executive director of Climate Diet, Jane DeMarinies. We are thrilled to have back with us today Chuck Carroll, who is an amazing podcaster himself, and many of you already know him. And he is obviously famous for having the most downloads of anybody in history, I believe, 150 million downloads of the exam room. So Chuck, welcome back. And thank you so much for being here with us and for all that you do in educating people about plant-based eating and healthy eating.
Well,
Thank you for
it's
being here.
it's my pleasure, and you should know I'm really not good with compliments. So, I don't think that the show is the biggest ever. Certainly, like we've had a lot of success, and I love the fact that so many people have been interested in the things that you and I have the opportunity to discuss on the show. And so, like to me, that's the best part of it is helping people out who are struggling, and then helping them also connect the dots so they can see the full scope of how impactful our diet is on literally everything in basically our environment, inside our bodies, everything, top to bottom. It's pretty neat.
That is so absolutely true. And one of and I'm glad you brought up the environment. Our name starts with the word climate. So we love when people will talk about that part of it. Of course, our health is critical. One of the things that we didn't talk about the last time, but the fact that now there are hospitals in New York City, and I believe it's 6 of the public hospitals in New York City use plant-based eating as a treatment for chronic disease, especially heart-related diseases, but also diabetes and obviously things related to cancer as well. I don't know if you'd like to offer an opinion on that, and if you have any update. It's the only hospitals. It's the only, pardon me.
It happens. That's why we have editors. Like, don't, it's all good.
I don't know if you'd like to, since your organization obviously represents physicians and so well aware of all these benefits, but any other news around that? It's Eric Adams, I believe, did that because he has the opportunity in New
Sure.
York as the
Sure.
mayor.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not a doctor myself, but I can certainly talk about my enthusiasm from the patient side and knowing a lot of people who work on the Healthy Hospitals campaign up in New York. Um, what they're able to do is second to none because they're reaching patients literally at their greatest moment of need. They're reaching patients who have just had or are in the middle of the worst day of their life. And when we find ourselves in that type of crisis, that's when we open our minds, we open our ears, and we're able to pay attention and absorb and appreciate information that ordinarily would just go in one ear and out the other. But they're reaching people at this time when it's so critical. And what I've learned from speaking to the team up there is that the adherence rate after a patient is discharged is actually impressive. Even if they don't go completely plant-based, and to be honest, most of them don't, the fact that they now have been exposed to this way of eating really portends well the fact that they will begin to incorporate more fruits, vegetables, whole grains into their diet moving forward. Again, it's kind of a case, as my friend Will Bolsowitz likes to say, progress over perfection. And that's certainly what we have in New York, where in these hospitals that you mentioned, those are the ones where the default items on the menu are plant-based, and you have to actually request something from the traditional diet, which is so counter to virtually everywhere else in the world. I think that it's fantastic, and I really hope that there are other hospital systems around the country and globally that begin to adopt these similar practices.
Well, I'm so glad to hear about it and your own connection there, and the continuation of that diet. So is there any data on that? I don't know if they've kept data on what percent actually continue, partial plant-based eating or making it their primary, even
Yeah,
if it's not
I
total?
wish I had data for you. Certainly, I think that we can connect you with somebody from that campaign who can talk about the numbers. That's not really my campaign. I just know that it's really impressive what they're able to do. So, again, progress over perfection. So it's not going to be 100%, unfortunately, but it's definitely more than I think a lot of people would think.
That is huge. And my organization doesn't promote, an all or nothing approach. We have a program called Meat Down Pledge, and we just ask people to give up meat 1 day a week. And,
Nice.
it's a place to start. And people find, I think, once they try it, how surprisingly terrific the food is. And also, it comes with the benefits of better health and also weight loss. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that a bit because your own story is significant here. And I was lucky enough to have you come speak at a event that I had a little over a year ago, and you brought this big pair of pants. So I love hearing your own origin story and what it did for you, but it wasn't uh, just a surgery. Anyway,
No, no, the surgery was just kind of the launching pad for everything. Because what I've discovered in the 16 years now since I had bariatric surgery is that, yeah, it's a great way to start weight loss, but it's not going to enable you to circumvent all the things that you've been taught since you were a little kid. And that is, it's going to boil down to eating healthier foods and exercising more. And those are two inescapable truths. And I think that had I known then what I do now, I very likely would have made a different decision. And I didn't used to have that opinion at all. And that's certainly not to say that I'm going to judge anybody who has bariatric surgery because they are literally in the midst of a battle that they probably don't understand. And they're desperate and they're making a decision based off of the information that they have at the time. So, my heart goes out to anybody who's truly struggling with their weight. Recently, though, there have been a number of health challenges that have arisen with me, and they've been very difficult to diagnose. It's even included trips to the Mayo Clinic, many of them, and
wow.
they're still trying to figure everything out. But one of the options that's on the table that they felt strongly about exploring was, well, could this be caused by the weight loss surgery, even though it was so long ago? And so
Wow.
we're going to do some tests to explore that some of them are quite invasive and lengthy, like 3 months long. And so it's kind of been a struggle. But again, that said, it's the inescapable truth that no matter what, you're always going to have to eat cleaner, eat healthier, and exercise more. And those are two things also, though, that if a doctor was going to pull out a prescription pad and write down, a prescription for anything other than medication, you better believe that those would be the two leading things that get put down on that pad because those are two things, healthy food and exercise, that we all need. And it doesn't matter if you're 1 day or 100 years old, you need it in your life.
So, could you talk a little bit about when you became plant-based? Because I'm not sure exactly. I know you've been with PCRM and doing the exam room for about 8 years, and
Yeah.
you were a sports uh, a sports personality, sportscaster for
Yeah.
your career before that. So you've had this exciting broadcasting career. No wonder you're so good. But
I've
I
been,
but I
yeah.
don't really know exactly when you became plant-based.
Yeah, so it was about 9 years now, and I've been very fortunate in my career to be able to find things that I absolutely love and somehow earn a paycheck by doing it. Like it almost seems criminal to me the way that I've been able to do that. But I entered the world of plant-based the way the majority of people do, through the NFL and WWE, so football and professional wrestling. And I wish I was kidding you. I mean, this is my life. I was working, as you said, as a sports reporter here in Washington, D.C., working with the NFL team now known as the Commanders. And when word in the locker room spread about my weight loss. I was given by the players the nickname the weight loss champion. Matter of fact, it was by Adam Carricker, who I was doing a radio show with, and he was a University of Nebraska football legend and first round draft pick, and he's still to this day is a great friend of mine. We were just texting before you and I hopped on, and so they call me the weight loss champion. And eventually, this organization called PCRM, or the Physicians Committee, they started asking around if there would be any athletes or sports media personalities that would be interested in doing a campaign with them called Teaming Up for Health. Now, neither Adam or I knew anything about a plant-based diet. Certainly, the word vegan in that locker room was more or less taboo and shall not be mentioned. But we like the idea of promoting health for people. It's paramount, certainly as a professional athlete, but then me having my own weight loss story. And when we went in for the photo shoot that day, it was a crash course on healthy eating. It was like, why wasn't I ever told this before? And so PCRM, at the time, that was the extent of my relationship, but I had such a good impression of the organization based off of that day that I always thought, if circumstances are right, I would like to circle back and work more with them. And eventually, I transitioned away from sports and became a regular newscaster, and was out covering some of the most incredible stories. It was such a privilege to be in the middle of so many different things that people only saw on TV or on their phones, or old school read about in the paper. Um, yeah, and I can give you stories for days about that too. But you get burned out covering death and destruction every day as well. That kind of takes a mental toll on you.
I
And,
bet.
there's only so many times you can go up to somebody who has just lost a family member or going through a tragedy and ask, how are they feeling?
That's
Tell me
got to be
about your
very
day.
tough.
It's hard. And eventually you build up this callus to it because you
Mhm.
don't really have a choice. I think, that a lot of times when people see a reporter with a smile or laughing at a, horrific scene, um, they think that this person is soulless, and they're not. They've just had to develop a callus out of self-preservation. But I recognized that. I wanted to make a change. And around the same time, I interviewed a professional wrestler from WWE by the name of Austin Aries, who had just written this wonderful book about his plant-powered journey from bingo halls to the big time. And here's a guy who was from Wisconsin, the home of dairy, sausage, beer, and this guy's
Yeah.
eating a healthy diet and loving it and 100% plant-based. And, he gave me a list of documentaries to look at and gave me some more information. He said, hey, you might want to try this vegan thing. And that's kind of when it all fell into place. And shortly thereafter, I began eating a plant-based diet, called up my friends at PCRM and asked if they needed a podcast, and kind of away we went.
That is awesome. What were the documentaries that you watched?
What the Health certainly
Yeah,
was on that list, and
great
Forks
one.
Over Knives. It's
Right.
the standard ones. But I think that for people who are in this space, we forget just how powerful those movies can be
Oh,
for somebody who
yeah,
has no idea about
absolutely.
any of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we have a family member that had quintuple bypass surgery, and nobody, this is not to put down doctors, but there are a lot of doctors that really don't get very much education in medical school
Mm,
about nutrition. I've heard they only get 9 hours typically in
yeah.
their whole 4 years.
Sounds
Anyway,
about right. Yeah.
so this family member was recovering, and my daughter gave us a book, uh, the China Study, and we read that, and that was it. We became vegetarians, and then eventually uh, vegans. But we watched all those Cowspiracy, Seaspiracy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're powerful.
Those are hard to watch too. Those, I mean, they're
Oh, they
really
are.
well done, but they are so hard to watch.
I agree with you on that. So let's talk a little bit about um, more consumer sort of tips and things that you've learned and right now we have a huge number of people taking drugs. Ozempic, Wegovy, there's other generic takeoffs of those. What do you think? Do you think that is the answer? Because I think some of these drugs are hugely expensive, and getting addicted, not addicted, but needing that drug repeatedly to keep the weight loss, to me, does not seem like an answer. It might be a start, but it doesn't seem like you should have to be taking drugs just every month or every day. I'm not even sure how often you take them. I know you get this injection, and I think there's different ways. But anyway, I'd love to hear your opinion on this and things you've heard too, since you're with a group of physicians that
Yeah.
are involved in this intimately, I'm sure.
You know, I look at those, the GLP-1 antagonist drugs, or what they're called, if you want to give it the fancy name. Um, I look at them the same way that I do bariatric surgery or even a crash diet or something like that. It's a jumping off point. They're not sustainable. The majority of people who use these medications don't stay on them for very long. I mean, at the very longest, I've heard maybe 2 years, and that's kind of an extreme case. But regardless of how long you use them, if you don't make diet and lifestyle modifications while you're using these medications, you're going to put weight back on as soon as you come back off of them. And that leads us to the inescapable truth that no matter what it is you do, there is not a single solitary diet or surgery or medication that can prevent you from needing to make the diet and lifestyle changes. And so I, in some ways, look at them now um, as a waste of money. But at the same time, again, I can't judge anybody who feels like they need these to get themselves going. But they're not, they're not a silver bullet. They're not magic. They're not the one thing that you've been looking for your entire life. They may be a thing that can help you get started in going down this path, but don't fool yourself into thinking that you can continue doing exactly what it is you have been doing and expect a different result. I mean, is that not the definition of insanity? And and I know that that sounds harsh, especially coming from somebody who has had bariatric surgery. Again, I have all the empathy in the world for people who are battling their weight. I absolutely do. I wish I could wrap my arms around each and every one of them and just talk to them for a couple of hours about everything that I've learned. But man, it's like it's a great jumping off point, but you're going to make the changes. And those changes, Jane, they scare people to death because the strongest relationship outside of our family members, and sometimes for us even more so, the strongest relationship that we have is with our food. Food has been there on our good days, our bad days, our best days, and our worst days. Food is there to help pick you up when you are feeling like garbage, and food will never let you down in the moment. You may not like the end result over time. You may not look the way that you look in the mirror. You may not like having to go to the doctor for chronic illnesses, but the food in the moment is going to put a smile on your face. And it's so easy for us to put blinders over everything else except for that one moment where we're eating and we get that little high from eating junk food. And I remember that distinctly. And trying to go on one particular diet, I was doing the cookie diet and trying to go without Taco Bell for just 3 days and absolutely losing it, like mentally, physically, every way. I was like full blown in fast food detox, just like somebody who had checked into rehab. The sweats, feeling sick, angry. I mean, I even put my fist through a wall because it had been 3 days. And so like I couldn't take it anymore. I snuck out of the house. I went to Taco Bell and the first bite, all of that went away. And I just felt this rush of calm. It was like walking into a beautiful oasis and just loving life in that moment. And suddenly I felt great. I felt happy again. But that was also a very profound moment because it was only moments later that I realized that I was, in fact, a junk food junkie. And that's what had made dieting in the past so darn difficult. I never looked at food the way that people tend to look at drugs and alcohol and even tobacco, and that, you can very easily relapse with these things. But we reward ourselves with the fix instead of cutting it out completely, which is you would never say to an alcoholic, congratulations, you've hit a year of sobriety. Now have a beer. You would never say that. But we do that
That
with
is
food.
that is a good point. And food obviously is extremely addictive. And we
Hmm.
need it 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And we need it to fuel our bodies. So it's very complicated. And I'm glad to hear you talk about sort of the addictiveness of it. I myself am addicted to chocolate soy ice cream bars. And it's my treat every night. But luckily they're not too high in calories.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, look, we all have our vices. I mean, this is cup number 3 of coffee for me today,
oh my
and
God, love coffee.
it's
Yeah,
so good once it hits
love
your
coffee,
lips.
and it's
It's so
coffee's
good.
good for you. Uh,
Yeah. But I can
let's.
definitely tell a difference on the days when I haven't had it. It's I turn into a little bit of a grumpy Gus.
It's great. It
Yeah.
is. It is great. I'd like to, and we talked about this the last time, but move into talking a little bit about the environment
Yeah.
and people not really knowing so much, I think, about that part of it. I think your organization and my organization, we have spread the word and we bring this up and we put out information, but it takes a long time to get people to pay attention.
Mm.
So we do know that eating a plant-based diet is so much better for the environment, and that red meat is one of the biggest producers of greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. Obviously, cattle are huge, and dairy, of course, but cattle are huge animals. I don't know if they weigh 2 ton or 1 ton. They give off methane through belching, but they also their waste products also give off methane, and then the amount of food they eat that also produces methane into the environment. So when you see a bar chart of food and what the greenhouse gas emissions are, the highest, and you know this, but the highest level, the highest bar is red meat, is
Mm-hmm.
cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And one sad fact is that chocolate's also pretty high up there.
Oh
But
no.
anyway,
Oh, that's bad news.
yeah, I
I'm sorry to
know,
hear
I
that, Jane.
know.
I'm very
But
sorry to hear that.
I know we shouldn't bring it up. But and then at the bottom of that chart, the chart is this high. The top one is red meat, cattle. The bottom, a little teeny bar this big, are vegetables and
Mm.
fruits. Bananas are down there, peas, carrots. They're giving off almost no greenhouse gas emissions, and they're so good for you. So anyway, my little speech about the environment, it's clearly what we eat has a huge impact. But I think the message is getting out there, definitely to a younger generation. I think they have more anxiety around climate and fear for their own future, or what will this planet be like when we take over. But could you talk a little bit about that in your own view? And you're doing a podcast, so I'm sure you address this as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Just yesterday, I taped an episode with Dr. Hana Kaliova, who's our lead researcher here at the Physicians Committee, and she and her team actually have new research coming out on this, and they were able to rank not just specific foods, which have already been done, but the overall impact of a person's various diets and the impact that that has on the environment. And there was a very clear distinction between, the completely carnivorous diet being all the way at the top in terms of putting out the most greenhouse gas. And then at the very bottom, whole food plant based. And then about, a dozen or so other diets in the middle. And again, I mean, the correlation was crystal clear that the more meat a person ate, the greater the effect on the environment was. And you could just follow that bar chart all the way up, Um, and it just it is staggering. And then when you talk about, again, the resources that it takes to produce a pound of beef, it's a fraction of that, to produce a pound of beans. Like it's unbelievable. And people don't think about that. And then, we have the wool pulled over our eyes from time to time with slick marketing campaigns, like Burger King a few years ago had the I don't know, eco-friendly Whopper. I forget what they called it, where they fed cows a different type of grass. And I remember having a researcher on, and he was like, yeah, the facts that they're spitting are so skewed, it's not even funny. And this guy himself, I don't think was completely vegan, which was like, I loved that about this particular show. Cause I was like, we got independent, somebody like just backing this up. And he's like, the true number is like, they are reducing methane emissions, greenhouse gas emissions by like 0.001%, and I'm like, well, hurrah for 1/1000th of a percent, but like, man, and people are lining up by the truckload to get the Whopper in their cars and, SUVs and things like that are just pumping more of that greenhouse gas out into the world. So it really is. I know I'm just kind of rambling here. It's Friday. Please forgive me. It's just
No, I would like to read this research report. And frankly, I was not aware of that campaign. So
oh
it,
yeah. So
it doesn't surprise me. I don't
yeah,
know if you've read the book Raw Deal by Chloe Servino from Forbes magazine.
have not.
It's about the corruption in the meat industry. And during the Biden administration, I was doing a newsletter, and NBC did this report that popped up about the price fixing the four largest meat producers in the United States. And some of them are international, but that are sending their meat to the United States, were price fixing and were fined. Maybe it didn't make any difference to them, but I think it was over close to $500 million. They were fined, but it was during COVID. This was like 2021.
Mm.
They were ratcheting it up, and they were charging the highest prices ever during a time when people were losing their jobs, could not go to work because they had COVID. It's a sad story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
Chloe's
can't speak
book,
to, yeah.
she's covered that industry. She covers agriculture and food for Forbes. That book is very well researched. It's a good read.
Yeah, I should probably check that out. That's pretty interesting. That seems like it's right up my alley. Would tantillate me in my old reporter life. Yeah, and you look at the meat prices today. I mean, geez Louise. I mean, they're still sky high. And I haven't had red meat in many, many, many years at this point. And honestly, I think that this is the point that so many people forget. And it goes back to what it was we were talking about in terms of like the fear of breaking up with food that you've been eating. I don't miss red meat. I don't miss steak. I don't miss pork. I don't miss chicken. I don't miss any of it, to be honest with you. Why? Because your taste buds change naturally. And so what was once ultra appealing to you is very much a turnoff. And I'm very proud to be able to say that the idea of eating a steak now kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. I'll give you a funny example. I was
I like your technical terms.
the heebie-jeebies. Oh yeah, that's in the medical dictionary. So over the summer, I had the opportunity to go to Planta in Washington, D.C., completely plant-based restaurant. Well, one of the gentlemen whom I was dining with ordered their plant-based steak, and he was like,
Oh,
"Oh man, you gotta try this." I was like, "I haven't had steak in forever." Um, they freaking nailed it, Jane. I mean,
yeah.
this thing tasted like a
Yeah.
freaking steak. It looked like a steak. It tasted like a steak. I was like, are you kidding me right now?
The texture is just like it too. I've had it at DC Vegan right before it came on the market. I don't know if I think you can get it at the grocery store now. I haven't bought it, but
I was
um,
blown away. I was
yeah,
blown away. I think it was like a mushroom based thing or something, but I was just like, what kind of magical
I
wizardry
know.
went into making this? And who is the wizard that thought this up? Like, you have to have a legitimate degree in like physics to be able to think of, how to concoct something like that. It is incredible. And I love me some creativity. Love me some creativity.
You know, one thing, since we're talking about food, and one of the myths that's out there, I think, is that, oh, it's too expensive to be a vegan.
Mm,
Well, really, it's the opposite.
yeah.
We made, my husband and I made chili last night. Well, we made enough for 2 days. And I would say probably the total cost of that was, I don't know, $4.
Hmm.
And we made what would equal, I would say, probably 4 quarts to 6 quart, probably four
Yeah,
quarts of it anyway, enough for more than 2 days.
sure.
Uh, it's unbelievable. Lentils, lentil soup, lentils cost about, I don't know, $1.19 for a bag,
Yep.
and you make enough, and again, for like 2 days with carrots and onions.
Yeah.
Maybe I spent $3. I don't even think $3 to make lentil soup, and it's delicious.
But the key to what you said was I made this. And so when people think about like the vegan surcharge, you're not paying a vegan surcharge. You're paying the price of convenience in terms of pre-made food, right? Pre-packaged foods. Those are the ones that if they're plant-based, they're gonna like you're gonna be paying a premium for it. But if you invest a little bit of time in the kitchen, you're also, as you just explained eloquently with the chili and then the lentil soup, you're saving so much money. You can use that money then and invest not only in your health, but invest in your bank accounts, invest in your retirement funds, and save a whole lot of cash. And you look at somebody like Tony Okamoto, who has built an entire career of eating plant-based on a budget. And how she began eating this way out of financial necessity and
Oh,
loved it
interesting.
and felt better about it and just is thriving because of it. And she can even give you tips of like how to buy healthy foods at the dollar store if you're really just scraping by and filling up your grocery cart for an entire week, for a family of, even if it's just two people, you can do it for like $20-$30 if you do it carefully. You just have to make your own food.
And you're bringing up a good point. That's sort of the basis, really, of the China study, and Dr. Colin Campbell, that wrote that book, and that was the breaking point for us, or the changing point for us becoming vegans. Is he studied rural Chinese farmers that were really, down here in terms of how much money they made, and they were eating plant-based diet. Basically, sometimes they would eat meat, but they had the healthiest heart rates. And he took their diet back to he was a cardiologist, patients, and he said in his book that no one that ate that diet ever had another heart issue. These were people with heart attacks and serious heart problems. Never had any relapse, except for one person that did go off the diet.
Mhm.
It's such Anyway,
It's
it's
so simple and it's so powerful at the same time. And it truly is the best medicine that we can prescribe for ourselves. And, you know, thinking about what I'm going through currently medically, you know, unfortunately, a healthy diet did not prevent this from happening. It couldn't, especially if it's linked to bariatric surgery. But what the doctors have assured me time and again also is that I would be in so much worse shape had I not been eating clean and eating healthy. And so even though my body's kind of spazzing out because of everything that's going on, like, I mean, I would be probably completely bedridden and unable to
oh my
function,
God.
if I was eating that standard American diet still. And so that's also, I think, a really powerful message for somebody who's very sick themselves right now and thinks that there's nothing that can be done. Well, invest in healthier foods for your body. Start there. Give your body the nutrients that it needs, the nourishment that it needs. And for a lot of us, if you do it, it's going to be for the first time in your entire life, and you will be amazed at how your body responds. And oh, by the way, you get all the other great side effects, like you're giving an helping hand to the environment as well.
You bring up such a good point. And, just to add on to that, often when I get together with some of my friends that are not vegan, and we talk about, what they're doing in their health, and sometimes the first thing they say is, well, what medications do you take? And I'll say, well, I don't take anything. Like, what? And they're naming all these things they take. It's like, that is sad,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that you're on all these, people have legitimate things, but I
yeah,
think a lot of these things would go away if they got rid of the meat, the red
yeah.
meat that's clogging their arteries.
I mean, look, again, there's no silver bullet. I mean, I always talk in terms of risk reduction, and there's not going to be a cure all for everything, but in terms of percentages and in terms of at least if it's not going to cure all, it can certainly help you out. You will see improvements. And I can give you that one with 100% certainty. You will see improvements. I know of nobody who's invested in a plant-based diet who has not seen significant improvements in one form or fashion or another. Like it's just impossible to escape the good side effects that come with this.
And sort of the attitude adjustment that happens too. We did a little survey, and it's really been about 2 years, and it was around the 4th of July when, I don't know, I forget how many million hamburgers get eaten on the 4th of July. It's like 234 million burgers, I think, are eaten.
That's a lot.
It's a it's a lot. Anyway, so we did a survey to sort of tie into that, to ask people, and it was a random one using SurveyMonkey and a random audience. So we didn't pick vegans to answer these questions, but 2/3 of the people that responded did feel that their diet was impacting their own health, and thought that they, even though they weren't vegans, that they would like to do something to help the climate. And so they felt like they knew that they could, do something, and they said they planned to. Well, it was a random survey and it was anonymous. I don't know, people do feel like they are good people and want to do something good for the environment. So we were surprised that many, though, felt that they, or said they planned to really reduce meat to become, to help out the environment. So we were surprised and gladdened by that kind of message and that kind of
For sure.
research, even though
Yeah,
it was a small sample. But
for
people
sure.
do care, obviously, about,
Oh yeah.
this is where we all live, and
Yeah.
everyone sees the devastation that's happened, the rainforests being cut down, and what record high temperatures. Some countries are going to be unlivable. Saudi Arabia, I forget what kind of temperatures they had. I know in the rainforest, one of the pieces of data said where the rainforest cover is gone, the temperature during the day was going as high as 121 degrees. Well,
Ooh.
I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure you can't exist very long at 121 degrees
No,
if you're
that's
in.
that's quite balmy. That is quite balmy. Yeah.
Well, Chuck, it is such a pleasure and so uh, great to hear your personal story and more details on it, and what you're doing. And we so value uh, what you do and your organization and what they do. Is there anything you'd like to add, or any advice just for our listeners that you'd like to,
Ooh. Open-ended
add at this
question.
point?
Yeah, I think, and this is just based off of again my personal journey over the last few years. It's that I've kind of embraced this motto of never giving up, and it's really hard on some days. And it really doesn't matter whether, it's a really nasty health challenge or you feel like you could never change the way that you eat. You feel like you're destined to be overweight. Don't give up on yourself, right? There's nobody who has been a long-term success story who has not struggled. But the only difference is they found a way to keep going. And if you slip up one day, that does not necessarily mean you have to slip up the next. And even if you do have a 7 day, 14 day, 2 year backslide, it doesn't matter. You can always get right back up on that wagon, but never sell yourself short because there's no long term success story out there that has anything in their tool belt that you don't already have. And so if you just tap into that internal fortitude that we all have and prove to yourself how strong you can be, and prove that strength also by investing in eating a healthy diet, leading a healthy lifestyle. You'll be amazed. I like to say none of us are supermen or superwomen, but in a way, we're also all superheroes too, right? If we're able to have these incredible transformations, and anybody watching, anybody listening, you're capable of it. So never, ever, ever give up on yourself.
I might take this philosophy to use on keeping a clean desk, because I do not seem to ever be able to do that.
Oh man, yeah, mine is a disaster zone too. I've got literally one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 books. I've got a stack of 8 books over here with letters on top of them, various receipts and other things strewn about. But they say that a messy office is akin to brilliance, and in which
Oh,
case, I'm
really? I
just going
like
to
that.
declare us geniuses.
I like that. And see, you've uplifted me yet again. Chuck, this has just been such a pleasure.
Yeah.
So we're signing off. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this, and to our wonderful guests, Chuck, Carroll, and the exam room. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, everybody.